A very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today in our very educative session about sectional titles. And I can see most of you have joined. I can see Anne Wayodi, thank you for coming. I can see Aska, I can see Wanjiro, I can see Cynthia, I can see Kezia, thank you. I can see Esther, I can see Wangare, I can see Angela Omolo, one of our investors, thank you. I can see Kefa, I can see Sarah. I can see Anne, I can see Veronica, I can see Hannah Wanjiro, one of our investors. I can also see Lisa Mitoko, who is also one of our investors. Thank you all you guys for joining us today. So just a brief, today we will be talking about the transition of from the subleases which we were giving out a servo to our investors as the ownership documents to the new regime that the government has enforced which is the sectional titles. And today I'm joined by a very able team. I am joined by some of our lawyers at Mark and Partners. If you are our investor, you have dealt with them. To my far left, I am joined by Hansen. Hansen is a legal project lawyer at Mark and Partners. And close to me here is Ken. Ken is the managing partner at Mark and Partners. And just for them to say a word and just to introduce themselves and to greet you all. Hansen.
Jumbo, good evening. As introduced, my name is Hansen. I'm an advocate of the High Court. I'm a certified professional mediator by profession, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Hansen. Ken, over to you.
Thank you, Alice. My name is Ken Ashimosi. I'm the managing partner at the firm of Mark and Partners Advocates, and all we do there is real estate most of the time. Asante.
Thank you so much for joining us and extending your assistance here to be able to enable our investors. Here at Savo, we enable our investors achieve financial independence. And this is a step towards just holding their hands, just telling them what is going on outside there. What should you expect in terms of getting your ownership documents? What will be the change and what is the requirement of the government from you? And you as their lawyers, what do you require from them as we make this transition? So previously we used to do services. We used to do services as ownership documents. So as Savo, we have put up a building. Investors have taken a payment plan. They have finished, and normally in our payment plans, we complete within 24 months. They have completed, and now they begin earning their rent. But there is this question of what do I get to show? In the first stage, they had signed a sale agreement, which just tells them what is expected of you in this partnership that you have joined. And also from the sale agreement, they commit. It is a copy. I am making payments for my units, but this is what shows I am in agreement with these people. But later on, when they have completed, they need to get their ownership documents. Previously, we were getting subleases, but now you're telling us that the government has introduced a new regime where our investors need to get. So over to you. Will you tell us exactly just what is a
Good. Maybe to recap what you left.
Yes.
The agreements that we had with our investors provided the title document to be the sublease. But the introduction of the Sectional Properties Act in 2020 and the subsequent regulations in 2021, last year, then we were forced to change and abide by what the law is providing at the moment. It's something that we have not anticipated. But if you look at the agreements that we have sent to all investors, we have a clause that says in case there's a change in law or there's a change in any aspect of registration of ownership, then we will ensure that we are compliant. So all that we're doing right now is to comply to what the law has provided for.
Yes.
And that means that the sublease will no longer be issuing subleases as title documents.
Yes.
What will be issued moving forward? I know that some investors who had already invested in earlier projects. If I may just mention, maybe 90 Degrees. We have Coral Bells. We have Royal Suburbs 1.
Yes.
Those investors have subleases for now.
Have subleases.
But the investors who invested at Sabo Studios, Sabo Skywalk, Savo Sunset,
Yeah.
Royal Suburbs 2,
Yeah.
and the subsequent developments that you guys have in the pipeline will
Yes.
be issued by with the sectional titles.
Yes.
I think Hansen can, just explain to the audience what sectional titles are.
Okay.
But that is the brief summary of what we were doing before,
Yes.
and now we are moving forward to enter this new regime of the sectional titles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a sectional title is basically a title, or rather what we'd call a title deed. It's given or rather issued under the Sectional Properties Act, which was enacted in 2020, and there are subsequent regulations that came into force in 2021 that are going to guide us on how we are going to implement the act. So the titles are issued against apartment owners or other unit owners in a complex or a development, a normal development where we do not have, by a complex I mean it could be a mixed development where we have shops and we also have apartments.
Yes.
But now, for purposes of this discourse, let's say that the titles that are issued to apartment owners.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's very good to note that now this is what will be issued to apartment owners.
Mhm.
So the other question that my investors would have is, how do I acquire? So now I have invested in previous projects. That is 90 Degrees, Coral Bells, and now you're telling me that if I am an investor in Coral and an investor in Sabo Studios, in Coral I have already signed a sub-lease. In Sabo Studios, I'm not sure. So now you're telling us we're going to move the sectional way. So then they don't have sub-lease. No word of their ownership documents is really out there. So what process do they undertake now to ensure that in Coral I have something to show? In Sabo Studios, I also want something to show. So where exactly is the government at issuing this sectional title?
Okay. One thing we need to appreciate that this is a new law.
Yes.
And the government is putting in mechanisms to ensure that title deeds, the sectional title deeds, are being issued, especially for the new developments.
Yes, yes.
It's a new law in terms of they have the current law repealed the new law, the previous law. Sectional title deeds is not a new thing. I think I need to just make it very clear.
Yes.
Sectional title deeds is not a new thing.
Yes.
It's been here since 1987.
Yeah.
But what the government did is just to refine and have a very clear provision on what kind of developments do these sectional title deeds affect.
Yes.
So the investors who have who have subleases at Coral Bells,
Yes.
that is as good as a title deed.
Yes.
There's no difference in per se
Yes.
with the sectional title.
Yes.
From a legal perspective,
Yes.
what has changed is just the document itself.
Yes.
Let me put it plainly like that so that I don't confuse the audience.
Yes.
So for the sectional title deed, the guys who have invested at Savo Studios will have a title deed, which is a it's 4 pages.
Yes.
But the guys who have invested at Coral Bells have subleases, which are it's a booklet.
Huge. Yeah,
it's a booklet.
huge.
Yeah. So that is the main difference.
Yes.
But in terms of title, they're the same title deed in law. If you go with your sublease to the bank
Yes.
and you want a loan, you'll be given
The loan.
the loan. If you go with the sectional title, you'll be
Given
given
the
the loan.
sectional.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's no difference, and there's none that is superior than the
Than
other.
the other.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying that, so that the investors in the previous regime don't feel like I don't have a sufficient document to show ownership. My other question would be, now what is the process? Because previously, to get a sublease, you wait for you don't, like when a building is complete, we begin the process. So the government valuer comes, they value the unit, then the investor is supposed to pay stamp duty, which was 4% of the valued price. And then the list that I have already signed, the sublease, proceeds for registration. But in this new regime, what will be the process? How will we go about it?
Okay, so with this new regime,
Yes.
one thing I need to make clear is that stamp duty has not been done away with.
Yes.
We'll still pay stamp duty.
Yes.
There's still the valuation of the property.
Yes.
And the registration will still be there. Now the difference comes in
Yes.
where now the nature of the title.
Okay.
However, if I can just take us back on where the process starts from,
Yes.
the building has to be complete first.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So once the building is complete, a surveyor comes on ground and does what we call georeferencing and measuring of every unit.
Yes.
So now georeferencing in plain English would be basically coming up with Google Maps of that area.
Okay.
Right?
Layman's language.
Yes. Like coming up with Google Maps for that, apart for the development. Okay. So now once the measuring is done, the information gotten from the georeferencing and the measuring,
Yes.
the surveyor uses that to come up with a sectional plan. Now this sectional plan is then taken to the county government.
Yes.
Okay. The county government approves the same. After the county governments approve the sectional plan, the plans are taken to the lands office,
Yes.
where the registrar endorses them and approves.
Yes.
Now thereafter, they are taken to the director of survey. Now that is the last person to append approval on the sectional plans,
Yes.
because the plans now become the map
Yes.
of the development. And from the map, that's where the unit numbers that are going to be endorsed on the title are going to be written on.
Okay.
So the survey department is
Yes.
responsible for numbering parcels.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now on that's why they are the last department to actually endorse the sectional plans, and thereafter
Yes.
the sectional plans are submitted at lands together with the title, the mother title of the development,
Yes.
and thereafter the registrar comes up with individual titles for
Yes.
each unit,
Yes.
and in the process comes up with a corporation. Now in this regime,
Yes.
you'll notice that the corporation is registered by the lands registrar, and you don't have to do double work and go to the ministry, to the AG's office or the business registration office,
Yes.
to register a company, a management company, as it was with the sub-leases.
Okay.
So all these things are under one roof, and it reduces the registration bureaucracies that have been there in the past. So at this point, when the registrar is registering and issuing individual titles for every unit, he also comes up, or she also comes up with a corporation that will act like a management company. Okay.
Yes.
So and thereafter, once the titles are out,
Yes.
if you're an investor and you've paid your total purchase price, then you'll be able to get your title as will be at the time.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question. So the plans have been submitted
Yes.
to the government, ministry.
Yeah.
And in Savo, we have different payment plans. All our investors in a certain project do not making payments for the unit at the same time. We have a 2-year payment plan, which is within construction. But after that, we have a provision for a 3-year payment plan and a 5-year payment plan. So we've submitted the plans. They've been approved. Then the sectional titles, if the development is 471 units, for example, you're given 471 sectional titles,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
After it has been submitted.
Yeah.
Under whose name, because not everyone has completed payment. So you and I have completed, but Hansen has not completed.
Yeah.
Under whose name are these titles? And under whose name are they?
Okay. So when the sectional titles are going to be gotten from the Ministry of Lands, all the titles will be under the developer's name.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So at the point when you finish paying for your purchase price,
Yes.
now the normal transfer, by the normal transfer I mean now you'll have a title, you
Yes.
prepare a transfer document,
Yes.
the transfer document will be valued,
Yes.
and thereafter stamp duty will be paid,
Yes.
and registration of that title will be done against your name as an investor who was cleared paying for the purchase price.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's the audience gets it right. So at the end of 24 months, the structure is up. We are now submitting what has been done for georeference in the plan. So all titles will come out in Savo's name. Correct. And then every investor will pay stamp duty for it to be converted from Savo, the developer's name, into your name as an investor.
Correct.
Okay. So I hope everyone has gotten it right now. And then my other question would be, now we are moving. We have, the government has said this is somewhat a better plan than the sublease. But Ken here has told us there is really no there's really no, they are both ownership documents. Why the transition then? If they both equate the same value, if I take this one to the bank and I take the sectional title to the bank, and I still can get a loan against it, I still can show that this is my unit, then why the transition?
Okay.
The transition is very important because, initially we had so many regimes of land.
Yes, yes.
So many that the government in 2012 decided to collapse all in one.
Yes.
So we have the Land Act, we have the Land Registration Act, we have the National Land Commission Act, and then we have now the Sectional Properties Act. And under each of these laws, we have regulations that need to ensure that now we conform to the laws. So it was important that the government comes up with this law so that we conform to the law. And also to streamline the process of ownership, because there's been an uproar by some of the owners of apartments in some developments that, I have never received my title document, or we have issues in our development. Whenever I want to do A, B, C, D, I'm told the management company is not there, and so on and so forth. But what this law is trying to do is streamlining that process, and it's making the ownership process very clean and tidy, so that there is a solid legal backing that can support that kind of ownership. Of course, the other reason why the sectional the Sectional Properties Act has been revised, and also the government is really focusing on it, is because the previous law had some gaps in it. So this was an opportunity for the government to ensure that those gaps that were in the previous act of 1987 has been amended, and now we have a new law that is easy to understand, easy to implement, and just to give the owner of the property a solid tenure of ownership. Yeah.
As Hansen was speaking, I could pick out a few differences. He talked about georeferencing. Previously, the only thing that we'll hear that anyone from the government will do was basically the valuing. Come to the project, view the unit, look at it, then decide this unit is no longer at 1.6, it's now valued at 1.8. But he's spoken about something called georeferencing. And also, as he was speaking, he's spoken about a corporation. Previously, we are only used to management companies. What are the unique identifiers that you'd want investors to note about this new regime? For example, there will be georeferencing. Is there a cost to it? What exactly is their role in it? Things like that. Things that you want investors to really note so that they understand the transition.
Okay, georeferencing essentially came with the 2012.
Yes.
So ideally, it's something that should have started way back. It's just that now the Sectional Properties Act has brought some emphasis because of the registration of the sectional plans.
Okay.
So essentially, even if you're doing sub-leases, the project has to be georeferenced.
Yes.
Okay? Because as I said, that is coming up with the Google Maps for the development. Yeah. So when it comes to the corporation, now the corporation and the management company essentially work the same way. The only difference is now with the corporation, you won't be given share certificates. The share will be endorsed on the title. When you have your sectional title, it will indicate the share that you have in the common area. But then when it comes to the management companies, the company's registry would issue as a share certificate to confirm that you actually own that share, which represents the number of units you have. So each share is representative of one unit. But then, as I said, in the sectional properties, the title will have the share will be endorsed on the title. Yeah, so that's the difference. But essentially, they both work the same way. The management company and the corporation are there to manage the common areas, and that is the common thing that cuts across. The only difference is how do you show that I actually own this unit. So in the sectional titles, it's on the title. In the sub-leases, you have a certificate, a share certificate that shows you actually have a share in the management company. Yeah.
I think the other the other thing I can add to what Hansen has said on georeferencing. Georeferencing is very important, and it's what now assists the surveyor and the director of survey to come up with the sectional plans. I think we need to make it very clear to the investors at Tsavo. This is a new change in law, which we had not anticipated, and so there is a cost implication to it. The process of georeferencing and sectional plans has a cost to it. So that cost is what the surveyor charges, because the surveyor needs to go on the ground, do the resurvey do the georeferencing, then take measurements, exact measurements of all those apartments. So you can imagine a project like Tsavo Studios. There are 254 apartments. So a surveyor needs to go there and measure exactly those 254 apartments. So it's quite a tedious job, as you can imagine. So there's a cost implication to that, which I think if we have any investors on air who have invested at Tsavo Studios, must have been receiving constant communication that this is where we are at, this is how much it's going to cost, and this is how much we need to pay. Because that is a cost that we as Tsavo or the advocates were not anticipated. It's like if the government today says stamp duty is now 8% instead of 4%. You cannot blame me for what the government has changed. So that is the same kind of understanding or appreciation I want. I will beseech the investors at those particular projects to understand and appreciate where we're coming from. The other thing that also we need to know with sectional plans, since everyone will have their own title deeds, every investor or an apartment owner will be paying their own rates and rent to the government, because now it will be apportioned to each unit. It's not like what is happening at Coral Bells, where when you pay the service charge, it's the mandate of the management company to budget within that service charge and and put aside money that they can pay to the county government as rates or rent to the government. So in this one, now you'll be dealing with the government directly. If it's rates and rent, it will be apportioned to you. So what the investors will be paying to the corporation, as Hansen has highlighted, will just be the usual service charge to manage the common areas. Because remember, your garbage still needs to be collected, lights need to be paid for, water in common areas, the flower beds need to be managed, the security. So that will continue happening. So in a nutshell, the corporation and the management company, that one and the same thing. It's just that the structures have changed. And the other difference between the management company and the corporation is, like Hansen has already highlighted, that we will no longer be dealing with the company registry. We will be dealing with the Ministry of Lands, and under the sectional properties regulations, the terms and conditions or the rules of the management are already in the Act. So you can adopt those, or we can decide to amend or remove or add particular clauses, just to ensure that the culture that we have at Tsavo is still adhered to.
So thank you that you said about the 15,000, so that our investors who are here on air, and also to adhere to the communication that you have been making, that there is an additional cost to getting your sectional title. This is through georeferencing. My question on that would be, is the amount constant? Does it vary based on the location or on the number of units? Because you say it's the georeferencing. I am coming to measure 256. But if you go to a project like Royal 2, I have 403 units. Does it vary based on the number of units that me as a surveyor has to undertake? And does it also vary from one location to another?
Okay, this is constant, and this is because it's a negotiated fee. Because of the number of units that Tsavo has. But I can tell you for sure, if you go and get a surveyor and you want to engage them to do the georeferencing, they will charge you 4 times that amount, because so it's a figure that has been negotiated. And the 15,000 that you are requesting the investors and those particular projects to pay, it's just a top-up, because if what we've done is the cost that initially was going to cater for the share certificate, cost of incorporation, and the reversionary interest as provided for in the schedule in the sale agreement, is going to be a top-up. So ideally the cost that the surveyor is charging us is around 20-something thousand. Yeah, but we have tried to ensure that the cost is also shared. Yeah.
And then my last question on the same would be, in Savo's model, we ensure that investors earn while they sleep, that it is as passive as it can be. That's why an investor who has given their unit to Savo Lifestyle has also given their service charge to Corabel's management company, so that I don't have to pay land rates. I don't have to know, like, I just want my return. I don't need to know the nitty-gritties. Does this corporation allow for you as an investor to also contract your management company, that the bill goes to you, but I am the one who does the calculations, I am the one who pays the county government?
Yeah, sure.
Any project manager can do so, and because Savo has that value addition to the investors, then it's something that you can do if the investors give you the consent to do that on their behalf. So what will happen is you just pay their rates and rent at the beginning of the year, and they are compliant. Yeah, because remember, if you don't pay your rates and rent, the government, the county government can come and auction, take away your property, because it's, I think you've seen some advertisements in the newspaper or on telly saying that Nairobi County, you have a waiver of 100% to pay your rates. It's just to ensure that those guys who have been defaulting have an opportunity now to pay for the same, because the county government has the power to, to penalize you for not paying your rates. So actually it will be an advantage if Lifestyle can take up that responsibility and do it on behalf of the investors. Yeah.
Comment section, I can see most of you have joined. Really, this is a big thing for us. Thank you so much. I am going through the questions and the queries that you all are asking. I can see Koi Karaoke, you're saying looking forward for the training. We're here. John Mutiso is saying God bless you all. God bless you too. Lisa Mituko is saying that there's a problem with sound, but we've sorted it out. I can see Karanu is saying everything is okay. We continue with the same spirit. I can see Evelyn. I can see you, Karanu. I can see Andrew saying he's not ready to miss this. We need this kind of advice. I can see Anziza. She's asking, I'm still waiting on my sublease. She's saying she's still waiting on her sublease when she has completed. She's asking, will she get her sublease or now a sectional title in a project that is already complete?
I think we need to know which project. Because Savo Studios is a complete project.
No, in Royal Suburbs.
Suburbs.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I complete today and the other guys in Royal Suburbs are getting their sublease, do I get an opportunity of getting a sectional title now, or what's the process?
I'll let Hansen explain that.
Yes.
Because it's all it's there, but it's a whole thing that he needs to really explain and ensure that the audience understand.
Yes.
But just to clear the air for the investors at Royal Suburbs, some of them might not understand why I've completed my payment and my colleague maybe who we invested with at the same time has their sublease and I don't. Remember, it's a process. It's not a give and take thing when you go to lands. So it's a process. First of all,
to the property, once you've finished payment, and as you've correctly explained, the payment is not sporadic. We don't have the same payment plans. So if you have completed your payment today, then you have paid the respective costs, because you need to pay the valuer to go and value your property. So if you pay those costs, then we can schedule that a valuer goes to the property, conducts valuation, then we will tell you this is how much your property is worth. Some people have ready cash to pay stamp duty. Some will tell you, okay, I don't have money now, let's wait for a month or two. So when they pay the stamp duty to KRA, then we move ahead and submit their subleases for registration. And also at lands, it's not a give and take. You have to ensure that the registrar has to go through the documentation to confirm that it's indeed in order before they can now register your sublease. Once it's registered, then we can call you and tell you, okay, once it's registered, it has to come back for quality checks because they're human beings at land. So you just need to ensure that they have not missed anything in the documentation. Then once it's ready, we'll communicate to you. Your sublease is ready, come and take it. Come and collect it yourself because now this is not a sell agreement where we'll just give a rider to take it to you for signing. So it's that is your title deed. So you need to come to our offices, acknowledge you've received it, and then it's released to you. But I think for the process for that particular question, I think I'll let Hansen answer and explain the process of conversion.
So in the event that you have cleared your purchase price, and we are now at the sublease stage. Let me take the instance of rural suburbs 1 because that's the question that you asked. Right now, we're going to issue subleases, but eventually, there's a process that is ongoing currently, conversion of properties or rather land in Nairobi. Now, property is going to be converted, and it's going to, as Ken had, when he was starting his discourse, he said, we have now a law that consolidates the previous regimes. So the law right now requires that we have a standard way of identifying titles, a standard way of identifying numbers that relate to property. Unlike right now where we have a title that the titles look different essentially. Now, in rural suburbs, the conversion eventually it will happen. It's just that right now we haven't got the government hasn't got into that regime. The regime is called the RTA. So, but all the blocks in Nairobi, rather all the total property in Nairobi is being converted. Now, once the conversion is done into the new regime, now the law says that the developer will have the obligation to submit the titles for that development to have the land registrar actually have them converted. But now the process starts for the georeferencing has to be done first. Measuring, the process that we said initially, georeferencing has to be done, measuring of every unit, okay? Then the sectional plans are drafted, they are endorsed by the county, the land registrar, and the director of survey. Then you submit them together with the previous subleases, together with the mother title that the subleases have been registered against, together with the registered sectional titles at lands, and the conversion is going to happen. However, the law also gives the chance to individual unit owners to do it themselves. Okay? Though it will be definitely an expensive process because now, once you isolate your property, georeference it and do all these things by yourself, the cost implication would be, is way higher than when you do it all together. So essentially, yes, eventually, all apartments will end up going the sectional properties way. It's just a matter of time. But does it invalidate the title that is already there? No, it is still a title. Now, you'll realize that in between this waiting time, some people are going to take facilities with their subleases, right? So once they take facilities with their subleases, the original titles are in the bank as collateral. So at that point, the law obligates the bank to undertake that process of conversion. So that they do not, because banks would not release their collateral like that just to somebody who has not finished paying their loan. So the law obligates the bank, or rather the chargee at that point, whether it's a bank or microfinance, to actually undertake that process of conversion. And if at all you do not convert, there is a penalty in law. You cannot, because there's a deadline that the law has given for conversion. Realistically, we don't know if you're going to get there. But eventually, all apartments have to move towards the sectional properties direction.
It's very kind of you to make it clear that we have begun in Savo Studios because it is the block that is open. Nairobi block is open, but eventually will be open and will be under Addis Ababa.
Yeah.
It's so that the investors in other projects don't feel like we are starting in Savo Studios, but what about us? So here in Savo, there's a process we undertake of calling investors, ensuring that they sign their sub-leases, letting them know why it is important for you to have your ownership documents, and just telling them that if you do not sign now and your unit has already been valued, your stamp duty keeps on increasing because a real estate is an asset that appreciates. So now when I'm calling an investor will ask me, why should I sign a sublease? And eventually you will get to my block. Eventually I will need to get a sectional title. Is there any advantage of having a sublease prior other than just waiting for the sectional title?
Sorry, before Hansen answers that question, I need to just clarify something. The reason why someone might ask, or an investor might think, Royal Suburbs is in Nairobi. Why didn't we do the sectional way? Like I mentioned before, this is a new law. So by the time we were starting the registration of the subleases at Royal Suburbs, the regulations were not out yet. They were not out yet, and there was a space. Okay, there was a gap in between when the law was enacted and when the regulations came. So we had already commenced the process of registering the subleases. So we have to continue. Yeah. Since when the regulations came out, eventually, like Hansen has explained, the conversion will happen. To answer your question, and I think Hansen he can give an addition to what I'll say to it. Stamp duty, real estate appreciates. Where you bought a property for 1.3, 1.7, a studio apartment 1.7 3 years ago will not be the price next year. In fact, the communication that we have been sending out to investors that, hey, come and pay stamp duty, or come and sign your sublease. And some of the investors are not warming up to that communication. The next time we'll be saying, come and sign, the stamp duty will have increased because the property is appreciating. So if you have to pay 4% of 1.4, you might pay 2 million for the studio apartment. So the more time you take to pay, the more stamp duty you're going to pay. And for those investors whose apartments have already been valued, and they're delaying in paying stamp duty because they already signed the subleases. We told them, come and sign the subleases. We need you to sign. We did to do valuation, and they paid for the valuation process, but they are not warming up to pay stamp duty. KRA will start penalizing them. They will pay interest because they owe money to the government and they're not paying. Same way, if you owe money to the bank, there's default interest. So the same will apply to them. Yeah, I'm not sure if Hansen had something else to add.
Yeah, so just to add on what Ken has said, is that remember the valuation, when valuation is done, the law says the higher amount is what you pay stamp duty on. So you might have bought a property at 2 million, but the valuation at the time, and most times you realize that the properties that investors in Savo would buy off-plan properties, the value of that property at the time of purchase and the time of registration of interest against your name, the property has significantly increased in value. So you'll end up paying slightly higher, but then the more you wait, the higher it gets, because the government always charges stamp duty on the higher price upon valuation, not just the purchase price. Now, what is the beauty of paying early? In the event conversion happens, if you're waiting for the sectional titles wave to get to your project, if you pay early and you already have a sublease registered, you won't have to pay stamp duty the second time. You won't pay twice. That's why the law says you won't pay twice. So if you pay now, the conversion will only be a matter of switching titles into the new regime. Yes, of course, you'll have incidental costs at the lands registry, but they won't be as high as stamp duty.
Yeah, they won't be as high.
Yes.
Yeah. So to my dear investors, I hope you've had that you still need to sign your sublease. You still need to pay for your stamp duty for this sublease to move forward for registration, because you will not need, this is the same document you will take for conversion. You don't need to go through the process again. So let's continue signing. still viable documents as we move the sectional title. And then my other question will be, you mentioned something about cooperation. I'm still there because I know this one investors will really ask. Previously, in the previous regime, I'll even sign something to show that you have transferred a transfer share. Show that you have transferred, as I own 2 units, be it studios, be it 2 bedrooms, you will give me 2 shares in the management company. Now there is a corporation that will be formed in the lands registry. What do I own in that corporation? Based on whatever unit I have, be it a studio, be it a 2 bedroom, what is my stake in that corporation? My stake in this management company is, I'll say, in this entire company, I've got 2 shares, which are equivalent to the number of units I own in the project. Yes.
Yeah, so I think it should be important at this point, if at all we could be in a position.
An example of the sectional title, you will notice that a title in law has 3 parts. It has what we call the proprietorship section.
Yes.
The proprietorship section says who's the proprietor, who's the owner. Yes. Then you have the property section, which describes the property, the address of the property, and a little bit of information of the owner as well. Yes. Then you have the encumbrance section, and at this section, this is where if you take a facility or a loan, they are endorsed against that section. So now, in the proprietorship section and in the property section, which is the first part, the first page of the title and the second page, you will notice that your 1 share will be indicated, whether it will be typed on that title. Okay. So if you have 2 units, you'll have 2 titles, each representing 1 share. Okay? So you won't have, even if it will be every unit, every title, every share. Yeah. So 1 title is equals to 1 share, is equals to 1 unit. Okay. Yeah. So it will be on the title. It won't be you won't get the certificates. Yeah, or you won't have to sign a transfer deed, because you see, the registrar is going to automatically form a company. That's how the law, when the registration of the sectional titles is being done against so that they can come out with the name of the developer. Okay. So at that time, when the titles come out, let's say for instance, all the titles come out in the name of Savo Studios, then you're going to have Savo Studios as the proprietor, 1 share for unit 1. Then you go for unit 2, Savo Studios as the proprietor, share 1 for unit 2, like that. Because you see now the sectional plan has the number, the title number for each unit. That is what will be endorsed with the title, and that will be equivalent to 1 share. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That one is a really big one. They will really ask. When I look at my comment section, I can see Wanjiro Chalo. She's asking, will the georeferencing show that my apartment is on what floor? When we have the sectional plans, do they show? You see the way in the sublease, at the end of the sublease, in the last pages, we have a plan that shows this is your exact unit marked in the sublease. What will they see in this sectional title?
Okay. We have sectional plans.
Yes.
What is at the last page on the subleases that we have registered are floor plans.
Yes.
So on the floor plans, you will see the floor plan of 5th floor of Royal Suburbs.
Yes,
and then your apartment is clearly marked as apartment 501.
Yes.
This is where it's located.
Yes.
However, for the sectional properties, we have the sectional plans.
Yes.
Now, on the sectional plan itself, the unit is clearly demarcated. In terms of it gives the size, it gives the number, and then it gives the location on where the property is located at. So I'm sure at the end of it all, I think it's among the completion documents. We'll give a copy of it because it's a very huge document. So we'll have to compress it so that when you're getting a title deed, you also get a copy of it.
So that it's very clear. And also it authenticates that ideally this the process went through the end to end, and here is a copy of the document, and this is how eventually I received my title deed.
Yeah. So this is where my unit is.
So that information will be on the sectional plans.
Also, she's asking, under the previous regime, were subleases owners paying land rates and rent? We've said no, they were not.
They were paying directly. So through the management company. So, you know, if you look at your sublease, there's a clause that explains how the service charge is applied and what it goes towards paying. So, and among those items that, or among the costs that service charge goes to pay, is the, of course, what I've highlighted before, the security and rates and rent is in there. It's already in there. Yeah. So what will happen is that instead of, because now it was a contribution towards it, but right now, you might have been contributing, if there are 400 units, maybe your contribution was 100 bob, then eventually you pay 40,000 or so. But now you'll be apportioned the exact amount of how you, the exact amount of how you need to pay. So you'll still be paying, but it's just that you'll be paying now directly. Yeah.
Off the camera, we can, as for our servo investors, we can look at how we can work with the corporation to be able to make it as passive as it was before. We can look at, are we able to pay this land rates and this rent on your behalf? And then our able lawyers here will advise us on how to go about it. She's also another investor called Andrew Waitito. Hi, Andrew. Andrew is asking, is Servo Skywalk under sectional titles or will it be still under sub-leases? Skywalk is our new baby coming.
The project manager is
right. Skywalk is here. Yes, this is the man behind all these agreements we've been signing. Yes.
Yeah. So for some of Skywalk,
yes,
it will go the sectional properties way. Yes. The fact that the building, the completion, the total completion is yet to be reached at. It has been affected by conversion to start with. Yes. So it is ready for conversion into section properties. When you read your sale agreement, you notice that there was a window of, in the event there's a change of law.
Yes.
How do we handle it? And this is now the eventuality that came with us by an action of the sectional properties. So Servo Skywalk will go the sectional properties way, and yes, I think that should be made clear to the investors.
Okay. My question, I think, an additional question on that. Has georeferencing begun, or does the structure and everything about the building have to be complete, or is it just the structure?
For Skywalk,
the georeferencing process has begun. Because I think our anticipated completion period is a month from now, June, I think. So the georeferencing, we've already engaged the surveyor and he's in the process of doing that already. Because Servo Skywalk is within the Nairobi block. And because the law is here, the regulations are here, then we'll go ahead. I think I need to make it very clear. The only delay we had with Servo Studios is we did not have regulations in place. But you see, Servo Skywalk is coming, is being completed at a point where we have the act in place and we have the regulations in place. So it's very clear. And also the conversion has started. And also our disaster system is also here with us. But for Skywalk, for Servo Studios, it was different. It was wait and see.
It's very important that you address that. The gap was did not have the regulations in place, so we are not sure which way to go. But now moving forward, it is very clear that we are going the sectional title way. Also, I can see an investor called Kish. Hi, Kish. They're asking, what is the difference between the sectional titles and the sub-lease? What are the unique identifiable just differences for investors to just notice?
The first and obvious one is the appearance.
The appearance. One is bound.
One is a booklet.
Yes.
50 pages or 40 or 30 pages.
Yes.
The other one is just a title deed.
Yes.
The same title deed you're issued with when you're buying land.
A piece of land.
Same title deed.
Yeah.
That is now the basic difference.
Yes.
But of course there are other differences.
Yes.
Hansen.
Yeah. So one that you mentioned through the presentation is that the rates are going to be apportioned to every unit owner.
Yes.
In the section of properties, because basically owning
vertical property. It's owning land in the air,
land.
right? So the obligations are apportioned when it comes to the sectional titles. With the subleases, it is communally done. But communally done is you contribute towards a service charge, and a portion of that service charge is paid to lands and the county government to settle the rates and rent, noting that sub-leases, which is this is another difference as well, sub-leases are registered against the mother title, right? But when it comes to sectional properties, the mother title is submitted to lands, and whatever comes out after is individual titles for every unit. Okay, so the shares that are commonly, the only common thing is that all of you own a share in the common area, but ideally everyone has their own title when it comes to sectional properties. Now, the other difference is that, as Ken had said, that the lease is a booklet, which means it's drafted by advocates. Now, then it is taken to lands for endorsement by the registrar, which validates now and makes it a title. After it's being, and it's usually accompanied by several completion documents just to legitimize and make it proper for in the event you want to use it for securities. There are some of the, those are some of the things that they'll ask, where the completion documents, just to confirm that this property was actually well registered and the title is clean. Now, with the sectional property, now it's not a booklet, it's issued from the government. The paper used is not from the advocates anymore. The paper is that it comes from the government. It's given from the government. So those are some of the salient features that you'll get from both, and how you can differentiate them.
Okay.
Yes.
From my comment section, I can see Lisa Mitoko. Lisa is one of our investors. Hi, Lisa. She's asking, is your referencing a one-off cost, or does it come up every time the unit ownership changes?
It's a one-time cost.
Yeah.
It's a one-time cost.
So if today I decide to sell to you, that's just to do the conversion.
Yeah.
You just take it.
The transfer.
Yes,
You'll just
the
transfer it from you to me. But your referencing is once.
Okay.
Once and for all.
So that will come to the question of what's the process of resale? What's the process of resale?
So resale depends on where you have reached with the transaction. Some people sell their units midway.
Yes.
Some people sell upon completion, before even the title deeds are issued. I think we've structured our sale agreements in a way that it enables, it envisages all those scenarios. So in case you sell before it's done or after, that is already provided for in the sale agreement. So let me give you an example. If you sell your unit after you've paid, after the project is complete, then of course you'll just enter into an agreement, that investor and the third party that wants to buy it. Then upon payment of the purchase price, there will be, the person who is buying it will be given the title deed. And they will pay the stamp duty and so on and so forth. Yes. If it's within the life of the transaction, that is before completion, before the project is completed, then you can assign it to someone. The legal word is assignment. You can assign it to someone. Let's maybe, and I think we had such cases during the COVID period where some people lost their jobs and they could not continue, paying for their unit. So what they could do, they will get a friend or a relative, and then they will assign their rights in the sale agreement, so that they can continue where this other person left. What
if I have already completed, I have paid for the unit, I have gotten the title in my name, but now due to whatever reason I have decided to sell it to you? Where do I go? Do I go to lands? Do I go to the advocates, or do I go to do I come to Savo? Where exactly do I go to get the this transfer of ownership?
Once you have your title deed, you can do with it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But of course, if you're selling property, the first thing I think we always advise our clients, our friends, is get a lawyer who understands how to, who can assist you do the transaction, and not any other lawyer. I think I always insist this: go to a real estate lawyer or a conveyancing lawyer who understands, because you see, law is just like medicine. You cannot take your toothache to a gynae. So it's the same thing. So find an advocate who understands how to do, who can advise you. So you'll get an advocate. The advocate will prepare for your sale agreement. Of course, you'll have agreed with the person you're selling to on the purchase price and how the purchase price needs to be paid. They sign the sale agreement, then you can give them the completion documents now because you have the title deed. So if it's a sublease or a sectional title deed, you'll give it to them, then they will do their own transfer. Yeah.
Okay, that's well understood.
So you don't
You
need
need
to
to come to Savo.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can come to you. They need to
You can come to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see an investor called Anziza. She's asking, in this regime, where do I pay my land rates? In this new regime, where will I be required to pay my land rates? Is it to the county government? Where exactly?
So rates are paid to the county government.
Yes.
So if I told you
Stationed in Kiambu, you'll pay to the Kiambu County Government. If your property is stationed in Nairobi, you'll pay the Nairobi County Government.
and they will send you the bill themselves.
Now, when you go to the county government website,
Yes.
you can be able to search for your property, and it is going to tabulate how much you owe to the county government. And it's just like as well at Ardisasa.
Yes.
If you want to pay rent, you'll go to Ardisasa, you'll type in your number,
Yes.
and the system itself will tabulate and tell you this is what you owe to the government. Because rent is paid to the government, rates are paid to the county government. Yeah.
I have an investor called Aska. Hi, Aska. They are asking what these additional costs that we've spoken about that are coming due to the sectional titles. Will there be an option to increase the monthly rent to tenants, or what can an investor do to cater for these costs? I think this one is this one they can come to me. We can discuss.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we increase rent based on market prices. Because in Savo's model, I pay you based on you having a tenant. So I have to ensure that the occupancy rate is at 100. And if I can't get you a tenant with a certain amount, then we need to relook. That's what we can discuss after. Yes. And then I can see Tamara. Hi, Tamara. Tamara is saying this is a very informative session. She's asking what is the importance of signing the agreement for sale and the sublist for investors
Investors to just understand, because sometimes there's a lot of push and pull for investors to just sign their official documents, that is sale agreements, and that is the subleases. It's a bit off, but it's very, very important for investors to even hear it from the advocates themselves.
I think it's very, very important
Yes.
for investors
Sign
to sign
agreements.
Yes, yes.
Either if they're buying property from Savo or not,
Yes.
it's very important for them to sign the sale agreement. So I'll deal with the sale agreement part, then Hansen will deal with the lease part, the sublease part, why it's important to sign the sublease. The sale agreement is the only document that shows the relationship you have between Savo and yourself as an investor. You can give money to Savo today, and these are some of the challenges that you're experiencing with some of the investors. Once the sales team has sold them a property and they pay deposit, they forget, or they don't, they are not proactive to sign the sale agreement. And some of the reasons we get are the property is not yet done. Why do I need to sign a sale agreement? I will just sign the sale agreement when I want to sign the sale agreement. Or so you see, that is the only link. If something happens to you as an investor, your beneficiaries, let's say, God forbid you pass on, and you paid money to Savo. So what is the relationship? How will we know that you signed the sale agreement and maybe there's someone who is going to benefit once you're gone? Because the sale agreements that we have are very clear that you give a next of kin. We get that information from you. So we know in case anything happens to you, then this property will contact them and tell them, hey, you had invested with Savo and this is your property, or it belongs to your sister, your father, and it has happened. I think we have just experiences here. We have lost some investors in the last couple of years. And without that document being signed, you expose yourself. So you might lose your investment. And what Savo will do will just forward your money to the Unclaimed Assets Authority, and that is, will eat it as a government. So that is what will happen. So it's very important that all investors sign their sale agreement. It's in case of a dispute, if a dispute arises, you don't have any legal documentation as evidence to back your case. If Savo is bought by a foreign company, and you say I invested money in Savo, what documentation do you have to show? So that is the sale agreement. As much as people don't look at it or take interest in signing it, it's a very extremely important document. I think I can even say it's extremely important than the sub-lease. It's extremely important because you see a sub-lease is, and Hansen will highlight on this. A sub-lease and a title deed is just evidence of ownership. You can own property without having a title deed. And actually with the Ardisasa, you don't need to have the hard copy title deed. It's like what is happening at the company registry. It is an online thing. You see, we are in a digital era. So I don't need to print out my title deed to show you I own property. Once it's registered, that is it. So the sale agreement is extremely critical, just as much as the sublease is. So I will encourage the investors that have not signed their sublease, their agreements, don't shy away because we're going to demand payment of legal fees. That is not the reason why we emphasize that come and sign your sale agreement. It's because of the exposure you're exposing to yourself. Yeah, and I'm sure if some of those investors had advocates, their advocates will have really pushed them to sign sale agreements even before paying the money. So, and I think like they always say, ignorance of the law is no defense. So don't wait until things are bad, then now you know. So Hansen can just dive in and explain why it's important to sign the sublease as well.
Yeah, so why it's important to sign the sublease actually linked to what Ken has said. The sale agreement informs the lease. So once you know what the sale agreement has and what the contents of the sale agreement, you will anticipate what am I going to get in my lease, because that is a document that informs the lease. So it is important that you know where the lease is coming from, number one, and two, it is only at that point when you sign the lease that you get an indefeasible title. By an indefeasible title mean an absolute title. So it is evidence of ownership, as Ken has just said. So both documents are very important, and noting that a significant amount of projects by Savo are off plan. You see, this is this document called the sale agreement, or rather an agreement for sale, is what guards that relationship within that time when the building is still going up. Okay, so it is important, actually extremely important, as Ken emphasizes, that you sign the sale agreement or the agreement for sale. As but it just doesn't protect you and create a relationship, but it also informs the lease, which ends up giving or confirming the absolute ownership that you have for the apartment.
And I think what Hansen also, I'm sure he might have missed is, without signing the sublease, just for purposes of emphasis, he has mentioned it, but from a legal perspective, without signing the sublease, you don't have anything. You have given me money, but you don't have anything at the same time. You understand? So it's important for you to sign the sublease so that that title is given to you.
And you have a document to show that
I own this thing.
It's not just in a statement of account that I paid this money. No, you have a legal document that comes from the lands ministry to show that this is my payment.
Also, Andrew is asking. I think he had missed this earlier on because we've touched on it. He's asking what exactly were the gaps in the old regime. When we talked about the reason for transition, we touched a bit on it. I think, Hansen, you can go over it again.
Yeah, so ideally in the previous regime, which actually is
why do we have the new Sectional Properties Act? We've had different laws in the past that govern properties in different regions. So understanding all these laws is a little bit complex for somebody who's not a lawyer, probably, right? So to make it easy and make the practice and real estate law easy for people to understand, and also to reduce the cumbersomeness that comes with interpreting different laws, in 2012, following the implementation of the Constitution in 2010, Parliament enacted the three major laws. Okay, that was the Land Act, the Land Registration Act, and the National Lands Commissions Act. Okay, so now at that point, that is when now the process, or rather the journey to sectional properties essentially began. So basically, the transition came in to do away with the multiple laws that were governing land, and to some extent, they could bring confusion, or they were bringing confusion. Yeah.
I think just to also add to what Hansen is saying, the previous Sectional Properties Act of 1987 really focused on a regime of the law that we call the Registered Lands Act. So I could not import, the properties which were under different regimes could not fit in. Yeah, so that is the main, the legal challenge that came with the implementation of that law. And the other thing was that the management or the corporation was not very clear. There are very big developments that had been done under the Sectional Properties Act. A good example is the Nyayo Estate, Nyayo and Bakasi Estate. Everyone there has a sectional title, but the corporation was an issue because the law that, like it was created then, was not very clear on how the corporation needs to be formed and run. And those are the gaps that, those are some of the gaps that inform the reason why we need to have the sectional titles, the Sectional Property Act now repealed, and now we have a new one. The other things that have also emerged are the mixed developments. We have mixed developments where you have apartments on one side, you have maishonettes on one side, you have the front part that is a commercial area. So how do you deal with that? Do we apply the sectional property as it was then, or now what do you do? But this act now has made it very clear that as much as a development can have vertical properties, and or it's a mixed development, it gives you the option. And that is why in the regulations there's an option either to adopt the Sectional Property Act or not, depending on how you've structured your development. So those are some of the gaps. But the other gaps, I think for this audience, it might, they'll be technical, but there are other gaps in law that exist, and that is the main reason why we had to come up with a new act. Yeah.
Andrew, there is the answer. And then I can see Watetu Mbogwa who's asking, do we also need to file rental income tax to carry?
Now, that is a tax question,
Yes.
a legal one at the same time, because of course
Tax and law are cousins. So if you have rental property, then you are obligated as a landlord to pay rental income tax. You can either choose to pay it monthly or at the end of the year. So the option is up to you, but yes, you need to pay rental tax. If it's on rent. But if you're owning it, or if you have an apartment and your son is living in it, you don't need to pay.
Martha, I can see Madam Hulu. Hi, Martha. She's asking, will the already signed sale agreements before the Sectional Title Act need to be amended, or do they remain the same? Are they still as binding as they were before?
Yeah. So the agreements that have already been signed are legal as they are, because there is always a rider clause in every agreement that you do that caters for change of laws. You see, law is dynamic. It's influenced with the culture of the time, the need of the time, the people of the time. So if at all something happens, which is definitely beyond all of us here, then that sale agreement caters for that, and it conforms into the new law that is actually guiding us at that time. So they are actually okay, they are legal, they're still binding, and yes, the relationship is not broken just because there's a change of law. Yes.
Thank you.
Clarified that. I can see Jenny Rama. She's asking, is Sabofeda under sectional titles or sub-leases? So everything moving forward now is under sectional titles. Yes, and I can see an investor called Kish who's saying they have already signed, but they have not paid stamp duty. What steps do they need to take to earn their sub-lease moving forward? What they need to do is to, I will reach out to you, and then I know that your unit has been valued, and then communicate to you how much your stamp duty is. After you have paid your stamp duty, all these documents here will be taken by our advocates to the land registry, and then they'll be registered, and you will get your fully complete registered sublease from the lands ministry. I think we are getting to the end of this. It has been a very lovely and interesting and very educative session, and I really, really thank you guys for coming. Thank you for taking your time to educate our investors. Thank you for taking your time to hold their hand, and for everything that you do behind the stage, that is the Atmark advocates, for drafting the agreements, for getting them to sign, for getting their leases, taking the documents to lands. It is a hectic job, but you have been doing it and you have done it with grace. To really, really thank you, and to tell you here at Savo, we really appreciate you, and our investors appreciate you. Thank you all for joining today. It has been a very lovely and informative session. And to welcome all of you who have any queries, to contact me, Alice at Savo, and you can also call me, and then I am here willing and ready to hold your hands and to help you as we walk through this financial independence journey, to make it as passive as it can and to make it great for all of you. See you next time. Bye, guys.